The topic in my mentorship group this morning was and is shaping reality, and the premise of it is that um, it is said that reality looks different depending on your level of consciousness. And so when we look at levels of consciousness, there is a diagram that I can't pull up right now, but there's a diagram that shows levels of consciousness and the frequency of it. So down at the bottom of the levels of consciousness, you have, and let me say this right before I start. When I say levels of consciousness, I'm not talking about good, bad, right, wrong. We're just talking about frequencies, right? So I want to take the judgment off of low vibration, high vibration, and stuff because we have this tendency to think that if a person is high vibration, they're better, and low vibration is not, because that's not the premise of this or the idea. But down at the lower frequencies of consciousness, you have things like grief, guilt, despair, distress, depression, resentment, apathy, um, all of those things, bitterness, down at the bottom, right? And each one of those has its own frequency and its own energetic component. And I'm going to come back and show that chart at another time. But then right at the middle of the chart, there's courage, right? There's courage. Courage slices that chart in half. The lower vibrations down here, the higher vibrations are up here. So there's courage at the center. And then as we progress up, we have things like acceptance, allowance, um, bliss, love, and such at the top, right? And when you're down at a lower frequency, you see and interpret things from a lower frequency. So let's say you are in resentment, then the practicality of this is if you're in resentment, that's your frequency, then you don't have a choice but to think resentful thoughts. Your thoughts have a charge and they attract more of their own. So if you're sitting there thinking, just think about a time where you felt resentful. You kept thinking of more and more resentful thoughts, and your mind began to build a bigger and bigger case for your resentment to the point where it was a physical experience, and your physical experience intensified, right? If you plug into yourself, you'll see that that's true. When you're sitting in resentment, then resentful thoughts flow like a never ending stream to you. So then, when you think about a person you may feel resentful against, any and everything that they do will add to that sense of resentment. You see things from a lens of resentment. So they could be doing something really nice, but you don't know because your consciousness is vibrating on a frequency of resentment. Right? Think about a time where someone was resentful with you or about something you did, and you decided, hey, I want to do something nice. And then what they said was, you're just doing that because they interpreted it a certain way, right? So that's an example of your own physical experience of this truth, right? And so I'm not saying that it's right, wrong, good or bad, because resentment is a useful emotion. And let me park it right here, because some kind of way we have in the spiritual community somehow develop this mindset of manage emotions, control emotions, don't let them see your emotion. Anger is not something that we accept within ourselves or other people. We don't even know how to handle that. We don't want people to cry. We don't want them to feel bad. But we are designed for a continuum of emotion, right? We are given that ability to experience it. Why? Because those emotions are giving us good information. Emotions are not meant to drive our behavior. And we all have experienced times where we have acted on emotion, right? And usually, if the emotion was a low frequency, you felt real humiliated after, usually, right? Um, if the emotion was a higher frequency, like excitement, you did something out of excitement or whatever, then you probably felt good about that. But we are not wanting to act from emotion. What we're wanting to do is learn how to pull the information of the emotion into the mental realm so we can see what to do about it. Now, this is not the same as intellectualizing emotion. When you intellectualize an emotion, you don't get from it what you need. You explain it away, you put it somewhere, and then you go do something else, which is not really what the emotion was telling you. Let me give you an example. So let's say somebody did something and you felt like it was wrong or unfair. So you may feel disappointed. If you intellectualize that emotion, you say something like this: well, I can't be disappointed because it was their choice and da 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 da. You explain it away so you can feel better and you move on with your life, not having gotten anything from the emotion at all. You may feel angry and you emote. And you may tell yourself, I shouldn't feel like that because it really is their choice. I mean, I can't control other people. That's the sound of a person intellectualizing their emotion. There's a space for that. We need to do that, but not before we get the information from the emotion. Also, in the spiritual community, we have gotten this idea that sitting with an emotion means stewing in it, right? So we go, you got to feel the emotion. You felt the emotion when it came. Okay. But the reason that most people sit in an emotion, number one, is because they don't know what to do about it. And then it sits there long enough and it becomes a mood, right? And then it becomes a disposition and you have become a negative entity or vibration and you don't even know it, right? So what we need to do from emotions or with emotions, number one is, yes, feel it, acknowledge it, put a word on it, right? In my latest, my not my latest book, but one of my books, Self Intimacy, I bring you through an entire process of this, right? So you feel the emotion. The emotion is the sensation. I'm talking about consciousness right now. Don't worry, I'm gonna bring it back. The emotion is a sensation, right? A feeling in your chest, a feeling in your gut, a feeling in your head, a feeling, whatever it is, you get some type of energy. Let's call it an energy. And that is an emotion. You need to acknowledge, I just felt something. Ooh, I felt something. Ooh, it's like a contraction. Or you might feel expansion, like, ah, that's an emotion too. Ooh, oh, that's emotion as well, right? So now that we acknowledge that we felt something, listen, some people don't even know that they feel anything. You ask them, well, what did you feel when that happened? And they'll say, I didn't feel anything. But you could tell they felt something because of their words, but they are not aware that they felt anything. So I'm telling you that your emotions are felt first. It is a physical experience. That's what I should say. Once the physical experience hits, it's an energy, then some thoughts begin. Okay. And sometimes it happens because the thought came in through someone else, then you feel the energy, right? So it could go either way. But the point here I want you to see is that an emotion is a physical experience. And you need to, number one, acknowledge that you felt something. Think about a time where out of nowhere, you just started feeling anxious. Out of nowhere, you just started feeling sad. Is it really out of nowhere? No, you're just not aware of when it started. Okay, but we have a tendency to talk with that language of just out the blue, suddenly. And we think that because we're not aware of something that it wasn't happening. Okay, but you did feel something first. So sometimes you got to slow your life down. We live in such a fast-paced life. We got to get things done. We got to do this. We got to do that. And you don't even see that when you gazed out of the blinds, the dog that walked past triggered something within you. But you didn't even notice that because you were so busy getting ready for work and you looked out the window real quick. That's an example. Okay, then later on you are had feeling some kind of energy or something like that, and you're like, I don't know where this came from. It started when you saw the dog, when you gazed out of the window, but you were unaware. So we got to slow our lives down, right? Hey y'all, I see y'all. So listen, you got to acknowledge that you felt something. Slow your life down so you can feel, right, as opposed to rushing toward everything. Next, you need to put a word on it. A lot of people are not equipped with emotional vocabulary because nobody told them that it was something that they needed. So now it's time to drop that reason that you give for not being good at expressing emotions and go ahead on Google and start looking up various emotional words. Equip yourself, okay? For example, sadness has different qualities of energy. Distress is different from the quality of disappointment sadness, right? And that's different than depression sadness. Do you see where I'm going with that? So you acknowledge that you felt something, put a word on it. I feel whatever. Now, the question is, what am I believing about this situation? Sometimes what you believe is not true. Sometimes what you believe is motivated by fear. Sometimes what you believe should be happening is motivated by someone else's experience or your past experience. Thank you. So you need to ask yourself, what do I believe about this? In other words, what should be happening and what should not be happening? I'm helping you process emotions, right? Because if you slow down and start going through this process, it will get faster and faster for you. But at first, it will seem tedious, okay? So, what do I think should be happening or shouldn't be happening? That's going to help you locate your belief system. You believe that people should XYZ. It's not happening. You have learned that when your belief system in that area is not happening, you should feel a way. You draw a conclusion based upon your autopilot, based upon your conditioning. So you can ask yourself, what kind of conclusions am I drawing here? What kind of conclusions am I drawing here? So for example, let's say your mother didn't call you on your birthday and you conclude that she doesn't care because you believe that people who love you should call you on your birthday. That's an example. I'm not saying that's right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm just giving you an example. Or your father didn't come to your school event where you were the lead in the play. He doesn't care. He doesn't love me. Let me put it there. Because a lot of people confuse love, connection, care, all of those get muddled up together and you start drawing conclusions. So when you feel your father didn't show up, you concluded that he doesn't care anything about you, and then you choose how you're going to act toward him. Belief systems. What do I believe about this? What should or shouldn't be happening? Now, the next question I think is really important when we're dealing with people. You don't have to drop the belief system, but you need to ask yourself, is this realistic? Because part of the suffering that comes in is not because you have a belief system. It's because you're trying to impose your reality on someone else's and draw conclusions from it, right? So sometimes you have outdated belief systems that need to be updated. What should be happening? What conclusion am I drawing here? Is this realistic? In other words, let's say for me, I have 4 children, and they're varying ages, 21, 17 to 20 or 14. So maybe when they come home from visiting their other parent, they are not in sync with my schedule over here. So when they come home, they forget to wash the dishes. They forget to clean the bathroom because they have a whole day that they need to reacclimate themselves to because we have different energies, right? So I want them to come home and jump straight into what they're doing, but they don't. And I realize that that's a pattern. So I could draw the conclusion that they're just whatever, use the words that have been used with you. They're just lazy. They're just inconsiderate. They just don't care. Those are the conclusions. Now, the question is, what do I feel should be happening? I feel that they should come home and immediately jump into X, Y, and Z. Is that realistic? And the answer is no, it's not. No matter how much I think that they should be able to do that, time has shown that they do not have that awareness. So I can keep getting really upset about my conclusion. Remember? Now notice this. I didn't say get really upset with them. I said get really upset about my conclusion. Because that's what you're really getting upset about. You conclude that they don't care about how you feel and you get upset. You get upset about your conclusion. You're not getting upset about what they're doing. That conclusion is violating something that you feel should be happening or shouldn't be happening. Okay, so I have a choice. I can keep plugging into my conclusions and fuss about that, and then go to them and bring some confusion and chaos over there, blame them, accuse them of being inconsiderate, not caring about me, just coming in here and doing this. I could do that. And many people do that. But I didn't want to create more suffering for myself or them. So I asked myself, is this realistic? It's not. It's not realistic. Now, I still want this stuff done. I'm not dropping what I want, right? Asking the question of, is this realistic, doesn't mean you have to drop your desires or your belief systems. It doesn't mean that. It could mean that if you have a belief system that's not really working. But I realized that there's something I can do. What can I do to facilitate what I want to see happen? Okay, so what I decided to do was, when they come in, remind them, hey y'all, don't forget blah, 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 this and that needs to be done. They say okay, and we move on. I have eliminated suffering for myself and them. I hope that makes sense. Now, let's say I keep reminding them, but they don't do it. Okay, I said, do this. How many times I have to repeat myself? Or you go, I keep telling them, and they still are not doing it. Okay, so I could go along with the conclusion. I told them and they still don't care. Could do that, but that would create more suffering for myself and them. So next, my next level is to sit down and have a conversation. Hey y'all, this is really important to me. And so I would like to know, how can I help you remember? Because I really want this done. How can I help you remember? How can I make this easier? You see, I want to work with them to get done what I want done. I don't want to sit there stewing and suffering and resentment and things like that. And we're going to come up with a plan. Now, this is different when you're dealing with adults, because children have a level of surrender to spaces like that. When you're talking about an adult, it's a similar process. We're going to have a conversation about it, right? Here's what I see. Here's what I want. And then I'm going to ask, what about you? A lot of times in conversations, we don't ask the other person, how do you feel? We don't ask questions. This is what I feel. What are you thinking about this? What are your thoughts about it? How do you see this? Do you think that this is something that you want to do? These things are important. I'm trying to help you process emotion, right? And I'm going to go back to consciousness, right? So if this was an adult, I would go through the same process. I feel some kind of way. I feel disappointed. I don't know. So then I will ask myself, what conclusion are you drawing here? Because I feel disappointed about my conclusion. Okay, what conclusion am I drawing? Is this true? Is it realistic? Maybe I don't know sometimes. Sometimes it's not really clear. The next step is we're going to sit down and have a conversation. Hey, this is what I see. This is what I've been feeling. This is how I take that. Can you explain to me how you saw that? Can you tell me again, like, what was your thought process? we're going to have a conversation. Sometimes you can't have a conversation because that person is not going to be logical. What do you do next, right? So after you have attempted the conversation, but let's be real and be honest. Most people, when they're having a problem, we are not having the type of conversation that invites synergy. We're usually telling someone something and expecting them to do something with it. Responsible communication will require us to ask the person questions. How do you experience this? Most people are going to settle down if you ask them about how they see it. Now, when they tell you how they see it, here comes the breaking point for you. Are you going to receive what they're saying in a suffering way, or are you going to receive it in honor? Suffering or not, you could feel really good about what they're saying, or you may not feel good about what they're saying. Right now, we're not trying to manage emotions and not feel hurt. What we're trying to do is work through a dilemma, right? So let's say they say, hey, I don't want to do that, or they give you some reason to believe that they're not going to do it. Now you have to think to yourself, how do I want to navigate this? Because my conclusions cause me great suffering. The way I interpret what they say causes me great suffering. They're showing and telling me that they're not going to change, or they don't want to change. So now, what do I need to do in this relationship? Do I want to continue in it? How do I want to continue? What do I want to shift? What mindsets need to change for me? Does this relationship need to go, or is it something that I can work with? This is a whole process of using emotions to get to the bottom of an issue. But that's not what most people do, right? We know this. They feel something, and then they start telling people, I see you do this and you do that and da 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 da, and you and you and you and you, right? And I'm not against the word you, but what I don't think is appropriate is going straight off the emotion without doing this process at some point inside of yourself. If you don't have a clear idea of what you're trying to accomplish with the conversation, if your relationship cannot handle straightforward communication, like, these are all reasons to take a different route. But my point is, that first process that I laid out, most people are not doing that. Most people are feeling some kind of way and withdrawing, feeling some kind of way, lashing out, feeling some kind of way, going passive aggressive, feeling some kind of way and coping. That's what most people do with their emotions, or intellectualize them. But here, I'm talking about a very real process of actually taking the information from its raw state of experience and bringing it through alchemy to become something useful, right? Does that make sense? So reality, going back to levels of consciousness, reality looks different depending on your level of consciousness. So if you're unconscious about what I just said, then you're going to see a situation as unbearable. You're going to see a situation as confusing. You're going to see a situation as unfair. You're going to start putting all these words on it, right? But I encourage you to process first, okay? So if you are feeling distressed, you're going to interpret a situation in a different way than if you're feeling courageous or accepting a higher level of frequency. If you're down here in grief, then you're going to interpret a situation according to that level of grief. If you're if you're feeling in love, then you're going to interpret the same situation in a different way. What am I saying? What I'm saying is, your reality depends on your state of consciousness. Now, let me read to you something that I read to my mentorship group. It's an analogy, and then I'm getting out of here because I have another client. Okay, here it is. All right, so let me read this to you. Imagine that you have not seen your father since your birth, and he returns when you are 10 years old. He knocks at your door. Opening it, you see a strange face. You run to your mama saying, "Mama, there's a stranger at the door." Your mama comes and sees her long lost husband. With all the joy, she receives him and introduces him as your father. And you say, "Oh, my daddy." A few minutes before, he was a stranger and you felt fear. Now he has become your daddy and you felt excited. Did he change into your daddy? No, he is the same person. You created the idea of stranger, or you were taught the idea of stranger and accepted it. And then you changed it to daddy with incoming information. That's all. The entire outside world is based on your thoughts and mental attitude. The entire world is your own projection. Your values may change within a fraction of a second. Today, you may not even want to see the one who was your sweet honey yesterday. If we remember that, we won't put so much stress on outward things. What does this mean? I'm bringing it home. Number one, minds change with incoming information. They should change. When the new information is true or reflecting more truth, minds should change. Anyone who is coming in contact with truth and not changing is not evolving. That's the first thing. The second thing to think about is the way that you feel has everything to do with what you believe, what you conclude, how you interpret situations. If you take a moment to feel and not intellectualize emotions, to feel and not act on them, to feel and get the necessary information, you're going to find that your emotions are guiding you to everything you want. They may be guiding you to shift a relationship. They may be guiding you to stop a relationship, discontinue it. They may be guiding you to take certain actions, certain reflections. Your emotions are guides, but not reasons to act. Again, your emotions are guides. You got to get that good information from them, but not a reason to act. All right? So, for example, you feel sad, so you throw away a gift that you got for someone. That would be acting on emotion. But going through the process that I gave you may help you to realize that that person really did want the gift or whatever. I'm not the type of person to tell people, cut others off, stop doing this. Now, I don't know what's best for your life. Your emotions are telling you, though. And if you continue to experience the same emotion over and over and over again, you either, number one, are going to have to change some belief system, or number two, change your outer reality. One of them has to happen, or you're going to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And who wants that? Not me. All right. So reality looks different depending on your level of consciousness. One more example before I go. Children commonly look at things in terms of fairness, right? So you could hear them saying, "This is not fair, that's not fair, this is not fair." In fact, my children recently, and they're older, said to me that a system that I put in place wasn't fair. And I said, "I'm not trying to be fair. You have assumed that I was wanting to be fair." I wasn't trying to be fair. Life is not about fairness, because if that was true, then some of the things that innocent people are going through, they wouldn't go through it if life was about being fair. So I encourage you not to take that that state of consciousness on about life being fair and people being fair, and they do for this one and not me, and they give that and not me. That's when you have an orientation toward believing that life is about being fair. Fair may be important to you, so that may cause you to navigate life a certain way. But when you try to apply that on other people, then you are going to get a lot of suffering. That's another example. So what I told my children is my goal for doing this wasn't fairness. My goal was to take away the bickering that came with what was going on before. And I've achieved that, so I'm not worried about being fair. Now, if you want to come up with a system that you feel is fair, then when I give you this task, then you do it and do it well, and then I don't have to take it and do it my way. Ashe. All right, so that's it. Y'all have a beautiful day. I am about to get on with my next client. Talk soon.